when you start thinking about the products or services that you're buying, what is the image that you are selling to them to convince them to do that? And your brand should be based around that. And the way you live, the way you walk, the way you talk, on camera, off camera, on stage, backstage, I don't care what it is, on social media, in real life, should be revolved around showing these people that you, the brand, represents what the fuck you sell. Your ass needs to be able to cash checks that your mouth writes. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Return on Investment MF channel. It's your host, Zack ROI Williams, and this is the information your haters don't want you to hear about. Becoming the most badass version of yourself in business. What's going on, guys? It's Zack ROI Williams here, back with another episode of Return on Investment MF channel. Now, today I'm going to be speaking specifically about building your personal brand. And we're not necessarily going to get into all the technical here, but more so the importance. We'll cover technical later, but I really want to drive it home on how important it is for you to start building out your personal brand. Now, there's a few different ways this conversation's probably going to go, or especially if I was sitting in front of someone or on a panel speaking, or just kind of out and getting kind of questioned about what it is my thoughts are on building personal brands. Now, there's two main roles of thought. It's A, if you are the employee, and then B, if you are the employer. Both are important. And pretty specifically, if you're the employer, my voice just cracked there, so y'all can enjoy that sound clip. But if you're the employer, you need to be working on your personal brand. Every band, every company, everything needs a front man. And it's okay if that's not you, but you need to have someone that is the face of the company that's willing to take on that role of building a brand around themselves to help push traffic to the company, which is A, your products, or B, your services. But also simultaneously, if you're an employer, I highly recommend that you encourage your sales staff, and honestly any staff, but your sales staff primarily, to do the same. There's no conflict of interest there. It's crazy that I'm even saying this, but a girl that cut my hair one time, back when I lived in Memphis, she was working under someone else's roof for a little while and was trying to really kind of brand herself to become her own role, or not her own role model, her own influencer, right? She wanted to kind of build her own personal name up. And so she started branching off with a different page and all that, building up her name. Now, still funneling all that traffic through this brick and mortar that she was working under. And the owner found out and shut it down very, very aggressively. And I thought that was the most ignorant thing that I had ever heard of, because obviously at this time, she decided to chase her own dreams instead of build someone else's. So she branched off, started her own organization, and is killing it now because she's able to live in her own lane and push her own personal brand the way she wants, and it's blowing up for her. And it was just funny because the original business owner saw it as like a conflict of interest or kind of pulling attention away from themselves, got greedy, got arrogant, and shut it down. And I thought that was a detrimental decision for him. And so I encouraged her to keep, building her brand and kind of give her some pointers. But I want to say that if you are a business owner, that I highly encourage your sales reps to have their own brand. And now there's some things that we can, be somewhat cautious of. Obviously, you guys know me. You know how I act. You know what my attitude is. You know what my brand voice and my brand message is if you've been following me for a little bit. So, I'm pretty aggressive, right? Not everyone is as, polarizing and as aggressive. And I get that, and I understand some businesses have their own brand guidelines, and it's okay to be within that. But what we're focusing on here is you would be an idiot to think that everyone is going to appreciate you, your image, and your brand the way you build it based on your own likes, interests, thoughts, decisions, whatever it is. So when you bring on the sales staff, truly what you should be looking at is diversification, because everyone is going to be able to relate to a different group of people themselves. I mean, you seriously would be a fucking idiot to think that if you were just popping out a bunch of clones of yourself for your sales reps, that you're going to be able to scale the way that you truly should be if you had different images, you had different thought processes, different closing styles, different sales tactics, things like that. You'd be an idiot to think that you couldn't attract a wider and more diverse, basically, customer base, therefore allowing you to scale each one individually. Not only that, is you got to get to split test what these strategies that they're using, what these images are, so that way, when you go to make your next sales hires, if you got 10 different sales reps and they all have their own individual style, and you've got several that are rock stars, you can look at focusing on hiring more sales reps that are in alignment with the culture that these guys or girls are portraying. But to go back to the employee sales tactic or brand strategy, is think about what it is you stand for, right? And let's look at building brands around that. Now, that for those of you who's just listening, I'm wearing a shirt that says the Tattooed Sales Guy. This is actually a brand that I created, literally trademarked, LLC, the whole 9 yards, when I was working in corporate America in quote unquote just sales. And what it was is I constantly would hear people coming back. They remembered their experience with me, but they did not necessarily remember my name every time. So I would overhear my market, my customer avatar, my ideal, client coming in and, oh, is the tattooed guy this, the tattooed guy that, the guy with all the tattoos, right? So I was listening. I tell this all the time to the people that I consult, that your market will tell you how they want to be sold. Likewise, when you're building your personal brand, you will hear your audience give you that persona, and it's up to you to decide if that's a persona you want to fulfill or if you want to try and, create your own. I personally highly recommend listening to your audience. So I was like, all right, the tattooed guy, the tattooed sales guy, the tattooed salesman, the guy with all the tattoos that does sales, this, that, whatever. I was like, all right, cool, the tattooed sales guy. And so I branded it, created a logo for it, created a trademark, LLC. I created a website. I started, Facebook group, Facebook page, all this to generate around this persona. From there, I started developing that brand voice and that brand message based, again, on what the people wanted. And it got to a point where people were purchasing from me, not because of necessarily the product, because let's be real, we had other sales reps. And honestly, there's other places to go purchase these same products from, but they were buying it because the experience that I was pushing out there from my brand message and my branding, but also just the stigma, the persona, the what I stood for. And what I stood for whatever it was, is if they bought the products that I was selling, that they would receive what it is that I allowed those products to shine through me, right? And, I tell people all the time to sell the vision, not the product or service, and that's exactly what I was doing. For example, when I was working for Harley, I wasn't necessarily selling, some metal, some machinery, some motors, some tires, some rubber, some gaskets, some hoses. I wasn't selling all that stuff that just happened to be put together that was created a motorcycle. I was selling the dream that buying that Harley gave you this image, gave you this status, that gave you this level of enjoyment of life, that gave you this freedom, that gave you this addiction to the open road. That's what I was selling. So people were coming to me not because that they couldn't go buy this Harley anywhere else. It was because I was selling them the dream of that. So as I'm doing that, I'm looking at what type of a brand I can build around that. Well, some of the things that go around that lifestyle are tattoos. So I'm starting to open people up to where, maybe they got a corporate life. they can't necessarily get these tattoos. That is something deep down. Maybe that's something that they wanted. But this Harley and this experience that I was selling, this dream that I was selling them, was the closest thing they could get to that feeling of living the life that they wanted to live. And that is how I was able to, even working in corporate America, separate myself, create my own following, generate my own traction to sell under the umbrella of the brand. So I was never pulling anything away from the brand. I mean, at most, I was one of their top, producing, salesmen, because I was selling the dream. Therefore, as I'm bringing people into their brand, into their ecosystem, we're able to start letting the brand generate that lifetime value, that referral-based value of said customer. But it all started because I was building my own personal brand around who I was and the vision and the dream that I was selling, not the specific product or service. And, I'll be honest, I had tried this along the way and got shot down by several different, very, very well-off companies because they saw it as a conflict of interest. They saw it as divulging against their own, what they decided they thought their own brand was. And once I was able to and allowed to be put in my own lane and run in the lane that I was meant for, I proved everyone previously wrong. And the ones that allowed me the opportunity to build a brand based on who I was and what I was doing, it worked out very, very, very well for them. And I'll even, I'm going to quote Jaybird here, who is my head of sales and also a business partner in 2 other ventures. But, I have been helping him with sales, building him up, helping show him the way on selling the vision and not necessarily the product or services that we have. And he made a quote, and he generated it from several different people that he follows on his own. I mean, he's a standalone character. I mean, he is Jaybird, which is his brand, which I do not take away from him. In fact, previously in corporate America himself, he had to go by his real legal name, right? And people would come to me, and at first I was using that, and I ended up shutting it down, deleted all his personal name from everything, and actually making it this persona that he's built, because that's who the fuck he is. And he's the most comfortable acting as this persona of Jaybird and not Jordan Bergstrud, and allowing him and giving him that freedom and allowing him to be in that lane. And even really just practicing what I preach has allowed him to transform into the salesman that he was meant to be, because he was able to feel like, I appreciated him and was not trying to suppress him and what he's worked so hard for, but also he got to feel like himself. And I 100% believe that has a lot to do with the success he's seeing, and not only working with me, but also for himself and what he's able to build and characterize inside of himself. But anyways, a little tangent, shout out Jaybird, my man. But he's been doing his own study and to kind of really fall into what sales voice and message he wants to have. And so he's been studying a lot of people. And so I'm not 100% sure how many people this kind of came into a melting pot for him to say himself, but I was intentionally listening to a podcast that he was on, and he had made the comment that being in your own lane, what's so amazing about that is if you're truly in your own lane and not trying to get in someone else's fucking lane, and I'm paraphrasing, so, he maybe doesn't say it as graphic as I do, but you get where I'm going with this, is he was like, when you're in your own lane and there's no one else in your lane because you truly are in your own lane, you can go as fast as you want. So think about that. If you're constantly focusing on either A, being in someone else's lane, or B, if, say, for example, you're an employer and you're trying to force all your employees in your lane, guess what? You might be holding someone fucking back, bro. I'd be a fucking idiot to think that there's not someone else out there that's better at sales in my organization than I am, which now allows me to go out there and work on the company and not in the company. And even if I was still working in the company, if I was forcing these people in my fucking lane, they might be fucking faster than me. And now, because they're in my lane and I'm in front of them, I'm suppressing them. I'm holding them back, which is not only hurting them, it's hurting myself as well. So I thought it was a beautiful message that Jaybird was putting out there that, stay in your lane, focus on your lane. Because when you're in your own lane, you can go as fast as you want. And a big part of being in that lane is building your brand, okay? So employee and employer, I think there's a lot that you can pull from that and saying, if you're, an employee, a salesperson, or even if you're looking for an exit out of working for someone else and building your own brand, I think there's a lot that goes into, you might see other people that are out there killing it, this, that, whatever. So you're trying to emulate off them. You're trying to piggyback off them. You're trying to build a brand based on what it is they've already established. But ultimately what you're doing, all you're doing is you're getting in their fucking lane instead of building your own. And once you get caught up to them, you're going to be capped by allowing this person to set the pace, because you can only go as fast as they can if you're emulating yourself off them. And again, likewise, if you're an employer and you're forcing everyone behind you, you might have some fucking rock stars that if they happen to be in their own lane, bro, they might fucking lap you here or there. And you'll never know if you don't allow them to be themselves, to build a brand around themselves. I've gotten back to having my own personal name as a big part of my brand message. So a lot of y'all that are listening probably don't know the full history of myself and, where I started in 2010 with It's What We Do, the clothing line, versus moving on years and years and years later, developing the Tattooed Sales Guy brand. And then now who I am is Zack ROI Williams. And there's a specific reason there, because I still have ROI marketing firm, which is the main source of, my focus, my income, and how we are able to service our clients. But I was able to synergize the two, but also branch them off so that now I'm building my own personal brand, the Zack ROI Williams brand, while simultaneously building ROI marketing firm, separating those so that way the brand ROI marketing firm eventually could have an exit if wanted. And then Zack ROI Williams, that brand, that following, all the strategy based around that can be implemented into any organization that I either build, create, partner, or any products or services that I try to push. So it's able to move on with me as I grow and as I expand. And who knows, I'll probably never get rid of ROI marketing firm. I'd be an idiot to say that I won't ever, but who knows? I might not, because I'm able to do so much with that and it's so flexible. And as it grows, my plan is just continue scaling. And even if it does end up with a managing partner or something, I can still help assist there, but also have this personal brand that I can do anything with because it's mine. And so I highly, highly encourage you that if you've got a business, or if you work for a business, to look at creating your own personal brand, because the personal brand, people buy the products or services because of the person selling it to them, or which ultimately leads into they want to be like them. They want to represent what they look like, what they walk like, what they talk like, or it's because that person was able to sell that dream and be able to really push selling them the ultimate goal, which is whatever it is that you're pushing and what that can do for them. And as you guys know, that I genuinely believe that if you believe in your product or service, you owe it to your prospects to close them on that. And one of the ways you're going to do that is by having a brand that is the foundation that's going to be able to handle these clients, these prospects, these customers, whatever that is. They need to buy into the brand, which should be you. Therefore, you're able to really build this ecosystem around you. you're able to really sell them more than just a product or service. You get to sell them that dream. You get to sell them that persona. You get to sell them what it is that they ultimately want. It's not the product, right? It's not the service. It's not, I've said this a lot, they don't buy the Louis Vuitton bag because they just happen to want an overpriced backpack. They buy it because their friends all have them, and they see their friends as being respectable, as being successful, as being, this image of like what, and don't come on my channel talking about material items and products and all this. Don't matter. I hear what you're saying, but the reality is you're an idiot if you don't believe that the average human is going to see these as symbols, success symbols, or whatever it is. They want to be respected. They want to be seen as successful, whatever. So it's not about the backpack. It's not about the bag, the handbag. It's about everyone that they look up to, that they think is successful, that they think is wise, that they think has made it, whatever the case is, has these. That's that common denominator. And they want those people to look at them the same way. So therefore, they buy that same handbag because they want that same image. They want people to look at them the same way they look at people that have these quote unquote status symbols, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not going to get in an argument with you guys about this shit and, whether or not you want to spend your money on a bag or not. But that is what's going on. So when you start selling that vision, that dream, that's what people are buying. It's not about the bag. You can go buy a bag for a tenth of the price somewhere else. So when you start thinking about the products or services that you're buying, what is the image that you are selling to them to convince them to do that? And your brand should be based around that. And the way you live, the way you walk, the way you talk, on camera, off camera, on stage, backstage, I don't care what it is, on social media, in real life, should be revolved around showing these people that you, the brand, represents what the fuck you sell. Your ass needs to be able to cash checks that your mouth writes, okay? So I want y'all to think about that, and I want y'all to think about how you can build a brand based around that. So just think about that real hard. I'm going to leave y'all with that. Like I said, later on, we're going to drop some more technical things on that you can do that to build your own brand. Please take a look at mine. If you like my style, start looking at ways that you can replicate that, right? I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but if I am, you can look at that and you can start finding a way to build off of that to make it your own. But if I'm not, that's fine. Go out there and find someone who you appreciate the way their brand message is, the way their brand voice is, how they hold themselves, how they are, like I said, on social media versus off social media. Go do some research, create some swipe files, turn that over to your graphics team, to your video team. If you don't have that, reach out to us or go hire them, VAs or off Fiverr or whatever the case is, but start finding a way to start building up your brand based around this persona, this lifestyle, this dream that it is that you want to sell. And I promise you, results are going to come from it. You don't have to believe me. Just fucking watch me. I'm literally practicing what I preach. So you might not think that it's true, but if you're here watching this fucking video right now, it's probably because some of what I'm fucking saying is true, because all this is based on my brand, Zack ROI Williams. And I guess with that being said, this is a good place to end. So guys, I thank y'all for hanging out with me. If y'all don't know who I am, please check out my website, ZackROIWilliams.com. That's probably the first time in 30, 40 episodes that I've even mentioned my website. So, if you don't know who I am, do a little research and, reach out to me. Give me a shout out, give me a like, give me, jump in my DMs. But let's really look at what we got to do to help build your personal brand so that you can start selling that dream. And let's really get you in the lane that you're supposed to be in, which is your own. All right, guys, Zack ROI Williams. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me on another episode of Return on Investment MF Channel. Peace. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Now, if you want, you can find out more information about me and what we do at ZackROIWilliams.com. See you on the next video.